This movie is about paragraph spacing. Having looked at alignment and indentation, we're now going to move on to paragraph spacing, space before and space after. This related option, which is paragraph space between paragraphs of the same style, I will talk about when I have a movie on bullet and numbered lists. The first point I want to make is that we never want to have multiple returns. And in the movie about cleaning up text, I pointed out that there is a predefined query in Find Change where you can zap any multiple returns in text that you may have inherited from somebody else. There are reasons for this. Here are two reasons. The first is that those extra spaces might end up at the top of a page or column, and the space won't be ignored, so you'll get uneven column tops, whereas paragraph spacing before is ignored when it's at the top of a page or column. The second reason is that when you press return multiple times to increase the space between paragraphs, it's very difficult to control how big that space is. And typically a line space, which is what you'll get doing it that way, is going to be too much. Some related things to paragraph spacing. We need to consider the issue of proximity, which is just basically keeping stuff together that belongs together. So in the case of the text on the left-hand side, this subhead is equidistant between the preceding paragraph and the following paragraph. It's ambiguous about where it goes, what it's attached to. So we want to create a strong visual connection by making it closer to the text that it's talking about. So I have this as an example. I'm just going to recreate this. I'll duplicate this text frame. I'm going to hold down the Option or Alt key and the Shift key and drag away from it. And then I'll set it back to basic paragraph, so no formatting applied to it. Now I'm going to be using paragraph styles in this example, and I'm aware that chronologically in this series I haven't yet mentioned paragraph styles, so consider this a trailer, if you like, for paragraph styles. So when I apply the head style right there, that takes on that appearance, and the intro style, which is set to span 2 columns, it looks like that. Now everything else from that point on, I'll apply the body style too. And then we need the subheads, and here's where the paragraph spacing comes in, because built into each of these subheads, if I right click on subhead and choose edit, we can see indents and spacing, there is some space before. 8 points, which as it turns out is a half line space. Remember I said that if you press return, you're going to get 16 points or a whole line space. That's too much. So we can control exactly how much spacing we get. And I can just apply these paragraph styles, including the spacing that's part of them, by clicking on the style name. Now, I have a problem with my video card here, and that's why my text has sort of exploded. It hasn't really, and if I just cause my screen to redraw, that will solve the problem. Now, I'm using paragraph space before. Some people prefer to use space after. Ultimately, it's a matter of personal preference. For the most part, use one or the other. So we have space before and we have space after. It's usually an either-or proposition. There are sometimes when you want a bit of both, but typically it's one or the other.